Welcome back to another video with Hugh James, and I'm back down in the Cardiff offices today, joined by Louisa, and we're going to be talking about Sea King helicopters. So, really interesting topic, actually. So, something I flew about on as a lot in my time in the army. So, really interested to have this conversation with Louisa. So, thank you very much for joining us today, Louisa. And as nobody ever wants to hear me talking to start and waffling on, we'll get stuck straight into it. So, can you just tell us a little bit about what's the potential impact and what's going on with regard to Sea King helicopters?
Okay, so the Sea King helicopters, I think, were in service between the 1960s and finally taken out of service in 2018. They were used by the RAF and the Royal Navy as rescue helicopters, and also in warfare in tours such as Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Falklands. What happened is between 2011 to possibly 2018, many service personnel spent thousands of hours flying these Sea King helicopters, so pilots and aircrew. What happened is when they were in them, normally at low flying levels, they had the exhaust gases flown inside the aircraft and the fumes. The problem with the Sea King aircraft was the area of the exhaust. So the fumes would fly into the port door gun area and circulate around the Sea King helicopter, which meant all the personnel flying inside, so the aircrew and pilots, would be exposed in dangerous conditions and in high concentration levels of exhaust fumes and exhaust gases. The MOD were aware of this. They did, in 2010, do many studies of the effects of the exhaust gases on the aircrew themselves, and they found a direct link to cancer. The cancers that they found a direct link to were predominantly multiple myeloma and sarcoma. And the personnel who flew the Sea King were not aware of this. So the MOD chose not to make them aware, even though they were aware in the 1990s that this direct link between the Sea King. They didn't provide PPE, they didn't modify the aircraft, so the position of the exhaust, they could have modified it, they chose not to, and they didn't take it out of service till 2018. So thousands of aircrew will have been exposed to these dangerous concentration levels of exhaust fumes, and as a result have been or will be subjected to cancer.
Yeah, I guess there's two parts there for me, really. One, the fact that they knew something and didn't put actions in place to prevent it from happening. So that's worrying that they've done that, you know. And then the other one, I mean, from my experience of flying around in majority of helicopters, Sea Kings regularly, you know, good troop carrying capacity, lift capability as well. So it was like, you know, the taxi of the military back in them days. I very rarely been on board one with the doors and the windows shut because it just gets so hot.
Correct,
there's no air
and especially in the low-level flying conditions, they had to have the cockpit windows open, and obviously the port area, gun area, would be open as well. So these fumes would just go into the aircraft and circulate
straight around.
You can see that. There's many pictures on the internet. You can see the Sea King. It's bright yellow, but absolutely black, and often the personnel came off as well with really sooted faces, sooted helmets. You could see the level of concentration of the fumes that they were subjected to. And
I guess if it's going on your face, it's going in your lungs, isn't it? You're breathing it in. Okay. So what about case studies then? So what are you seeing coming forward now?
The first client that I had, he thought there might be a correlation between his cancer and flying in the Sea King. He did a Freedom of Information request from the government who produced these reports. So we were aware then that there was a direct link. The problem with multiple myeloma is it's predominantly an old person's cancer, so you wouldn't find it in young people, and most of these people are in their 40s with young families, that's unheard of. So again, we went to an expert, and the expert said, on the balance of probabilities, it has to have been subjected to exhaust fumes, because you don't get this kind of cancer until you're at least in your 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Now, we've been campaigning as well for quite a while, because everybody that's flying the Sea King might not be aware that they have cancer until a later date. Multiple myeloma can be picked up by a simple blood test. So we are campaigning at the moment to make the MOD just give everybody that served between those periods of time a simple blood test. Yeah. Now, although multiple myeloma isn't curable, an early diagnosis obviously is better for the families.
Yeah,
so we wrote a letter of claim to the MOD, and the cases that I've had to date, which have been quite a few, at the moment they've settled out of court for a significant amount of money, because these people have lost their careers. They were high-ranking pilots, they've lost their careers, they've lost their life, and their families need to be supported.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of somebody, particularly, pilots, air crew, or those who spend a lot of time on Sea King helicopters, what's the next steps for them? Where do they go now?
I would hugely urge anybody who has been subjected to maybe 1,000 and above flying hours to go to their GP to simply get the blood test to start with. So that will notify you whether you have got the cancer. If those that have already got the cancer, I would urge them to contact us directly as soon as possible. Date of knowledge is a bit of a problem in terms of the civil cases that we run, because they have to pursue a claim within a certain amount of time. Yeah. However, if they have just been made aware of the correlation between the two, which many don't know, then they'll be okay. So if you have been diagnosed with cancer, and the kind of cancer that I'm seeing are the likes of multiple myeloma, sarcoma, lung cancer, testicular cancer, all can be causative of exhaust fumes.
Okay, interesting. So I think great advice, if you're within that time period, try and get a blood test. If unfortunately you do have any of those cancers, or cancers, I guess, that are unusual in somebody of your age, and that's my age group, I'm
it's
44.
Young. It's young for these kind of cancers. It is young.
Yeah. So and get in contact, seek legal advice then, and
Absolutely.
move that forward, and speak to the team and Hugh James, really. So Louisa, thanks very much for coming and giving us that information. Really interesting, particularly because I've flown around on those helicopters a lot in my time. So thanks very much for sharing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.